This might look like something that belongs in saltwater, but this is Microphis heterosoma, the longmouth pipefish, a freshwater relative of the seahorse. And if you're thinking about keeping one, there's one thing that's probably going to determine whether you are successful more than anything else, and that's food. They are found in parts of Southeast Asia and Western Pacific where they inhabit streams, rivers, and areas that can be influenced by estuaries. And obviously the first thing you're going to notice is the body. They're incredibly long and skinny with tiny tubular mouth at the end of an exaggerated snout. That mouth tells you quite a bit about how this fish lives. These aren't fish that swim around taking bites out of things, they're predators, but on a very small scale. Pipefish slowly approach tiny aquatic animals and use suction to pull the prey directly into the mouth. Think of it almost like a tiny underwater turkey baster. And that's where keeping these fish can become challenging. In the wild, they're feeding on tiny crustaceans, zooplankton, insect larvae, and whatever happens to be appropriately sized that they can find. In captivity, live foods are going to be your safest option, especially when the fish are first introduced. Baby brine shrimp, adult brine shrimp, daphnia, copepods, mysis, other appropriately sized live foods are all things I would experiment with. Frozen foods may also be accepted, particularly once the fish have settled in, but I would never buy a pipefish assuming it's going to immediately eat whatever I normally feed my aquarium. And I definitely wouldn't buy one assuming it's going to survive on flakes and pellets. If you find one of these for sale, one of the first questions I would ask is, what are they eating? Not what should they eat? What are these exact fish eating right now? Because if somebody has already gotten them reliably eating frozen foods, that's information I want before I bring them home. The other problem isn't just what they eat, it's how they eat. They aren't exactly rainbow fish at feeding time. They don't blast across the aquarium and inhale everything before it touches the bottom. Pipefish are much more deliberate. They'll slowly move through the aquarium, spot something they want, line themselves up, and suck it into their mouth, which means tank mates become extremely important. I wouldn't put these with aggressive feeders that are going to wipe out every piece of food in 30 seconds. Even completely peaceful fish can be bad tank mates if they're simply too good at eating. For that reason, I'd actually prefer keeping them in a species-only aquarium, or if I had to have them with some other tank mates, I'm thinking like Microrasboras, Corydoras pygmaeus, smaller goby species would all be acceptable. And you actually want to make sure they're getting enough food and not just assuming they are because you saw them grab one brine shrimp. The aquarium itself should also be built around how these fish live. I'd want a mature aquarium with plenty of plants and structure. Fine leaf plants, mosses, roots, branches give them places to move through and hunt, and a mature aquarium can provide something else that's extremely valuable with specialized feeders. That's natural food. A tank that's been running for a while is going to have far more microscopic life than a sterile aquarium you just filled up yesterday. That doesn't mean you can't throw a pipefish into a new aquarium, it's just going to be a little more difficult. When you're dealing with a fish that's constantly looking for tiny prey, every little bit helps. I'd also keep the flow fairly reasonable. They can obviously handle moving water in nature, but I don't see any benefit in blasting them around the aquarium. Give them calmer areas where they can hover, hunt, and maneuver through plants. Water chemistry with these can be a bit more, I don't want to say complicated, but I'm going to say complicated. You'll sometimes see them referred to as brackish or saltwater. They're found in so many different regions, including landlocked lakes, meaning that yes, while they can live in brackish, while they can live in almost saltwater conditions, they can also live in purely freshwater. A lot of these freshwater pipefish are captive bred in home aquariums, so don't just assume it's going to be a brackish fish. Their breeding behavior is pretty interesting too. Like other pipefish and seahorses, the females produce the eggs and then transfer them to a specialized brood sac, I'll call it a brood sac, area on the male. The male then carries and protects the developing eggs until the young are released. Actually raising those babies would be an entirely different challenge because now you're dealing with even smaller mouths and even smaller live foods. It's pretty difficult, but it has been done quite a bit. Realistically though, I think just feeding the adults is going to be much more important and much more of a concern for people who actually want to keep this fish. And that's probably my biggest takeaway with this fish. I wouldn't necessarily call this a fish for beginners. Not because it's aggressive, not because it needs some ridiculous aquarium, and not necessarily because the water parameters are impossible to recreate. It's because you're keeping a fish with very specialized feeding strategy. If you can get them established, if you can provide them with food, they're actually a very hardy fish and accept a wide range of water parameters. Like most fish, it's much more important to keep the parameters stable than to copy the exact parameters of the water they came from. This is not just a freshwater fish that happens to look weird. It's an animal that's evolved an entirely different way of finding, approaching, and capturing its food. And when you understand that behavior, you also understand how you need to build the aquarium around it. So Microphis heterosoma definitely isn't going to be a fish for everyone, but if you're willing to put in a little extra effort into feeding and giving them an aquarium designed around their needs, this is one of the more unusual freshwater fish you can keep. And for me, that's what makes this fish so much fun. There's always another species out there that does things completely different than what we are used to. If you've ever kept freshwater pipefish, let me know about your experience down in the comments, especially what you were able to get them eating. As always, thanks for watching. I'd like to give a huge shout out to the Wet Spot Tropical Fish, who regularly brings in pipefish and also provided much of the B-roll you see in this video. So be sure to check them out. Use code Steenfott10 at checkout and you'll save 10% off your entire order minus shipping. As always, thanks for watching and we'll see you on the next one.